Hey, thank you everyone for joining in today's meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to our St. Barnabas Family Caregiver Support Program website. If you have any questions or you can just raise your hand at the end of the meeting or type in your questions on the message board, and then we'll go over them at the end of the presentation. And if you guys can mute your microphones. I'll be sharing my screen now. Today's topic will be on Alzheimer's. Can you guys see okay? Okay, so today I'm going to be reviewing Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease, it's an illness of the brain. It breaks down connections among brain cells and causes cells to die. It is a progressive disorder. It destroys memory, thinking skills, the ability to carry out simple tasks as the disease progresses. And it begins slowly and worsens over time as the disease stages progress over time. The disease is irreversible. There is no cure. A lot of individuals with Alzheimer's disease lose the ability to use good judgment, which in turn deals with spending money or some of them even wandering in some of the stages, and I'll review more later on in the presentation. Some facts on Alzheimer's disease. Symptoms can start to appear in older adults in their mid-60s. There's been cases of early onset Alzheimer's, which can manifest in their 30s, but those are rare cases, but it can start as early as 30s for some people. There's 5.5 million Americans in the United States that have dementia. It's the most common.
Hi, Olga.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for joining.
I was mopping the floor, I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm going to go ahead and mute you, okay?
Okay.
So Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia among older adults. It is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. Dementia, research has been done on low-income population with African Americans and Hispanic, and it said it's one of the most progressive in that population. It is said to 60% of African Americans will be diagnosed with dementia, and then for Hispanics, they're more likely to get dementia 1.5 times more than non-white in the population. In 2015, more than 15 million caregivers provided an estimated 18.1 billion hours of unpaid care. And that was, 5 years ago. And with Alzheimer's increasing every year among older adults, that number, I'm sure it's way more than that. Some of the symptoms and signs of Alzheimer's, it starts with memory loss. Short-term and long-term memory starts to fade. Memory problem is typically the first signs of Alzheimer's, but the symptoms can vary by person depending on the individual. It also interferes with communication and language, making it difficult for individuals with Alzheimer's to find words when they're trying to speak and communicate. They have problem naming things, that coincides with the word finding. They can't find the appropriate word when they want something or require a special need. Their speech also becomes, fluidity of speech becomes an issue with Alzheimer's patients. And then in the late stages, little to no verbal communication occurs. A person may not be able to understand or forget language. If English was their second language, they might forget it and revert back to just Spanish. That's one example of communication and language that they lose. Other symptoms and signs, inability to focus, to pay attention, disorganized planning of routine tasks. They have trouble remembering just simple tasks or the steps that require simple tasks such as cooking, cutting. They have trouble remembering what the steps are. They have difficulty in work and social settings. This is if they're still working for some individuals, trouble focusing on the tasks that need to be accomplished. Their reasoning and judgment also becomes a problem for Alzheimer's. They might start to overspend money, or they begin to wonder. They don't remember where they live, so they might leave the home. The loss of train thought when talking to individuals. They lack paying attention during long conversations. That attention span loosens, gets lost. Their visual perception also becomes a problem, and this is when most adults have falls. They lose that visual perception, so they might misstep, thinking that the floor is uneven, and then that's when some of the falls may occur. Disorientation as well. They don't know where they are. They feel lost. You can see it in a lot of people when they say, oh, I want to go home. They are home, but they just don't know where they are. They lose that disorientation. They have personality changes, depressed mood, impulsive behaviors, anxiety, agitation. Some of them become more aggressive as the Alzheimer's progresses. And some of the personality changes also might be when they get aggressive, they might start hitting, become violent. They might start hiding things from the caregivers, or they'll start, putting things away and don't remember where they put them, they left them. They might get more upset and angry easily. And that could be also the frustration of not being able to communicate properly with the caregiver and the needs that they want. Other factors might be health issues that can contribute to this changes in mood and anxiety. Some of them could be lack of sleep. That could have a influence on the way they're feeling. Infections also, if they're hungry or thirsty and they can't communicate that, so that might bring out more agitation and anxiety. Too much caffeine also can have an effect on the body and on an individual with Alzheimer's. Some of the stages of Alzheimer's disease, it consists of 3 main stages: the mid or early stage, moderate or middle stage, or the severe stage, which is the late stage. And then you can see here on the picture the progression of the brain as the disease progresses. Stages of Alzheimer's disease, it's good to know, especially as a caregiver, it's good to know this stages and understand how they progress, because it'll allow you as a caregiver to kind of know what to expect, even though the disease changes and they might have different symptoms, but it's always good to to know kind of what to expect and how to deal with it, or how to find information on it. It also helps you make plans for the future. You know, dealing with Alzheimer's, if the person doesn't have any power of attorney, or you know, somebody making the decisions for them as the disease progresses, it becomes more difficult for them to have an input on what they want in their health. So it's also good as future plans for the caregiver or the families to have this in place and know and talk to. I know it's hard to talk to, you know, the family, but it's very important to have those plans in place so you know what your loved one wants and what you can, and also even, you know, help them manage their finances, which it's a lot of, it's difficult for some patients with Alzheimer's that don't have anybody to manage their finances, and then you have somebody taking advantage of them. So it's always good to be informed as a caregiver. So for stage 1, this is where some of the memory loss begins. It's not major. There's changes in personality. This stage is when it might be the first, when it's first diagnosed. A lot of families and older adults skip this stage because they see memory loss as just, that's what old age does. You know, you're just getting older, so you start forgetting things. So you don't really pay attention to the signs. If there is a diagnosis, most people or most families might be in denial of the diagnosis. So they might just say, oh, no, you know, and they go back to like, it's old age. We all forget, we all go through that. We're just getting older. And then they might not be seeking help as well. You know, if you start seeing the symptoms, you might not be seeking help from professionals until it is not too late, but the stage has already advanced more. For stage 2, the middle stage, this is where memory and confusion are more obvious in the individual. They have trouble recognizing friends and families. They lack judgment. It could be money management. They're not paying their bills, their rent. They may be wandering more. So it's important not to leave a person with Alzheimer's alone if they experience any wandering. They become more restless. They have trouble sleeping. Their personality changes become more serious. They might be becoming more aggressive, more anxious. And at this point, they might need more help with their ADLs, daily activities of living, getting dressed, showering, the cooking. Even some of them might even need help, you know, with the bathroom. That's where incontinence starts to become a problem also for older adults. They forget also what day it is, what year they don't have a track of time. In their personality, like I said, it becomes more serious. They might be making threats. You know, they're accusing the family members or others of stealing or taking things. They might curse, kick, hit. This is where a lot of the more changes start to happen. For the late stage, this is the last stage of Alzheimer's. This is when the individual can no longer communicate. Their body starts to shut down. They're mostly bedridden. So they would need help transferring in and out of the bed. They can't walk anymore. So this is where it's more, gets more physical burden on the caregiver. Just trying to get them in and out of the bed and transferring. In this stage, they will need assistance with all of their ADLs, bathing, going to the bathroom, even feeding them. And like I said, you know, transferring in and out of the bed And a lot of caregivers might get injured trying to, lift the caregivers if they're not properly knowing how to do this. The patient might have trouble swallowing at this point and refuse to eat. This is where their health declines. And this stage eventually leads to death of the individual. Some of the causes of Alzheimer's, they're still unknown. There's a lot of research done, but they still don't know exactly what causes Alzheimer's. There's research that for early onset, they think it might be genetics. There's also things like health, your environment, and your lifestyle that can attribute to the Alzheimer's disease. People with researchers haven't found a specific gene that directly causes late onset Alzheimer's, but all these factors of health could have an effect. They have linked, or they think there might be a link between cognitive decline and vascular conditions, such as heart disease, stroke, and high blood pressure. So they're doing research into those aspects and how reducing the risk of these conditions may also reduce the risk of a person getting Alzheimer's. Also, your nutrition has a lot to do with what your body intakes, your physical activities, exercises, social engagements are also good. I mean, those are all good for your overall health, well-being, but those are also might be linked to also an individual, the risk of getting Alzheimer's diminish with time. Also, keeping the mind stimulating, finding, they say, crossword puzzles and just keeping your mind active will help in diminishing or reducing the risk of cognitive impair and decline, the decline in someone getting Alzheimer's. Diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. There's not really one test that can diagnose an individual with Alzheimer's. The doctor can do an overall health examination, just your overall health through all the years. They have memory tests that they can do to see how it's affecting cognitive on the individual. They have other medical tests that they can do. If you're suffering from an illness, it might be causing some of the memory cognitive impairments. So that might be just, they want to rule out that that's the case in when diagnosing or trying to diagnose Alzheimer's. And then they do the brain scans, the MRIs, CAT scans and all that, just to see how the brain is functioning and if there's any signs of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's can be definitely diagnosed only after death. So, you have all the symptoms, but there's no really definitely diagnosis for Alzheimer's. Treatments for Alzheimer's. There's really no treatment for Alzheimer's. Like I mentioned, there's no cure. Everything that's out there, the drugs, it's to help manage and the symptoms and the functionality. So it maintains mental function. It just helps you maintain the symptoms, and it also helps manage behavioral symptoms with individuals who are experiencing a lot of agitation, anxiety, some sedatives to help them calm down, to help them sleep at night if they are experiencing sleepiness, wandering. And then they're just kind of just to slow or delay the symptoms. Like I said, there's no treatment for it. It's just to manage some of the symptoms that the individual with Alzheimer's may be experiencing. Also, medications for some of these symptoms don't change the underlying disease process, and it may be effective only for some people. Some people may not react well to the medications, and it only helps for a limited time. Eventually, the medicine, or as the disease progresses, kind of just stops delaying their symptoms. I want to talk a little bit about sundowning. This happens at the end of the day and may continue throughout the night, making the person be up all night or just in and out of bed throughout the night. Individuals with sundowning will experience agitation, irritability, and disorientation. This is caused by a combination of factors, which is it could be exhaustion from the daily routine. It could also be changes in the individual's biological clock that confuses day and night. So they're not really, they think it might be daytime, so they want to be up when they're supposed to be sleeping. Some tips for caregivers on sundowning. Increasing daytime activities. This could be physical activities, exercise, limit naps during the day, limit the caffeine intake and sugar intakes also throughout the day. That way this can help them fall asleep. Setting a quiet and peaceful mood in the evening, keeping the lights low, reducing the noise levels. Noise can be a trigger for individuals with Alzheimer's. Playing soothing music will help start to relaxing. Even taking a walk outside before a couple hours before bedtime. Some more tips: set a bedtime routine. Always a schedule. Always have a time for bedtime. Either if you want 9 o'clock, and stick to that. Always 9 o'clock. That way, the individual can start having a schedule and say, okay, 9 o'clock, it's bedtime. Turning on the lights before sunset and closing the curtains at dusk. This will help minimize the shadows, and it may help diminish some of the confusion that goes on with the individual with Alzheimer's. Using night lights in the bedroom, the hall, and the bathroom throughout the night. And also, if last resort, nothing's working, you might want to talk to your doctor about some medication that may help them sleep. But just remember that, medication may solve one problem, but then it may just trigger other things. They might be sleeping throughout the night, but then they might be just confused the day after because of the medication. So just be aware of the side effects also of the medications that they're taking. I don't remember if I don't forget anything. And then just overall tips for caregivers on when dealing with Alzheimer's family member. Try to keep a routine throughout the day and stick to it. If you're gonna have lunch at this time, just set a routine. Breakfast at this time, lunch, bath at one time. That way it keeps the flow going. Individuals with Alzheimer's don't like change. So when you're changing everything, it creates chaos in their world. So sticking to a routine and just staying with that might help really set some of those agitations and prevent some of those agitations and anxieties with adults. When trying to have a conversation or communicate with them, make eye contact. This will help you know, the individual and yourself, and kind of express what they're needing. Keep it short and simple, you know, just, you know, instead of asking or giving them a long list of chores to do, or if you're asking them to do something, just keep it simple, 1, 2, 3 steps. Because again, they lose the train of thought. They can't manage simple tasks. So just keeping it short and simple will help both the caregiver and the individual with Alzheimer's. If you're gonna ask them, you know, don't ask, are you hungry? Just say, you know, what do you want to eat? And give them 2 choices. You know, do you want sandwich or hamburger? Just keep it simple. If you give them too much options, or you're trying to make them think, you know, they're already having trouble communicating with you. So that might just set frustration on both parts. Don't argue or try to reason with the individual. You know, I know it probably can be frustrating, which is, you know, try to, if you're having a tough time, just take a break, you know, step back, count to 10, you know, if it's safe, if you want to leave the room, you know, for a few minutes, and then just kind of come back and try all over again. Use signs. Also, it's part of communication. They can still read throughout the late stage. So if, you know, you might want to put a sign on the stove and saying, you know, hot, do not touch. And keep them like the short and simple, the signs as well, just simple words, you know, hot, do not touch. You might want to put a sign in the bathroom door saying bathroom, because they do forget, you know, where things are. So just little things like that may help you just throughout the day. And then just remember, sometimes what worked one day may not work the next day. So just always having something different every day, or trying something different. And then let them make, you know, some of the decisions too. If you're helping them get dressed, you know, again, with the lunch, pick out 2 shirts and say, you know, which one do you want to wear today? You know, just, but then again, don't give them too many options. Just stick to 2, because then you might end up getting more frustrated. Let's see. Okay, and then if you're a family caregiver, there's, you know, you're not alone. You might think you are the only one going through all this, but there is more family caregivers that are going through it. And just, you know, be informed of the disease and the stages. That way you know what to expect, even though sometimes even the symptoms might be different for individuals, but at least you're aware of it. And then again, it gives you time to prepare, you know, those important documents, power of attorney, wills, and just talking to the loved one, your loved one, as to what they need or want in the future for them. Coping skills, it'll give you, you know, it'll give you and provide you with coping skills that you can use as a caregiver for those times that you're feeling frustrated. Find a support network. This could be their family, friends, support groups, you know, like the ones we're doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. And just talking to people that are going through the same thing as you. They might have some tips that it's working for them that you might want to try, or, you know, just even just venting in support groups, it helps. And then respite, you know, take time for yourself. It's hard and you think you can handle it, and, you know, but you also need to take care of yourself, because if most of the time caregivers put all their energy on caring for the loved one and they forget about themselves. So then, you know, they start to become sick themselves, and some caregivers even end up, you know, in the hospital and not even able to take care of their loved one at some point. So just, you know, take some time for yourself, take care of your own health, and that's physical and mental health as well, and spiritual health. It's all connected. So just make sure you take a few, even if you take a few minutes throughout the day, if you can take an hour or a couple of hours, just throughout the day, take 5-10 minutes of rest and just kind of recharge. And, you know, it'll help you kind of get back into your caregiving routine. It just give you a better eyes of seeing things when frustration sets. Okay, I think that is all. Yes, this is all for, there's some of the references. So that is all for the presentation. If anybody has any questions.
I do. I have a couple questions. Yeah, we talk about Alzheimer's and dementia kind of synonymously, but I think there might be actually some differences between the two. Do you know what the difference between, if there is any, between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Well, there's different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is one of them.
Oh.
So yeah, they kind of put all the dementias. When they talk about dementia, it's just, they think of it's just one, but there's actually different types. Alzheimer's is one of them. But yeah,
Okay.
there's different types of dementia.
Cool. Thank you. I didn't know that. And another question I have, you were talking about the different stages of Alzheimer's. Is there an average or, like, you know, a typical kind of range for how long people stay in stage 3?
Stage 3 usually is, it didn't say how long, but it's usually like the shortest stage. Their body starts to shut down, they're not eating anymore, they're not drinking. So that stage it's typically not, it's the shortest. It's not, I can't tell you a specific length of time, but I believe it's the shortest stage.
That makes sense. Thank you. My last question is, you know, it seems to me in my memory that it was like maybe the 1980s we started hearing about Alzheimer's. And is it because they just like were discovering it because the technology and diagnostics got better, or is Alzheimer's something that like emerged as a new disease back then? Do they know? Do you know what I'm saying? Was it discovered, or did it like start occurring?
That's a good question.
Or do we even know? Because I guess we would know if it was occurring if we didn't discover it, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not quite sure. It might be just because more research has been done on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's, you know, and since more funding, the more research that's done, the more we start to hear about it.
Yeah.
And it is affecting more people. You know, maybe before it was just like that old age thing. It's just, oh, just getting old. So it might be just that we're tracking it more and doing more research, and people are actually getting the help, that we might be seeing more cases and more.
With the boomer generation all getting old, we've got all these people, you know, aging.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, anybody? Just in the chat box. I don't know how to, I can't check it.
Okay, I got a similar question. Sorry, one more. Do you know if the rates are increasing in the population?
Yes, they are. And when I wanted, as I was doing some of the research, when I mentioned it's increasing also mostly in the African American and Latino population.
Mm.
But, you know, they're not, most of them are not seeking the help that they need. And hopefully the more research that it's done in those under populations, there'll be more, I don't want to say funding, but more
Resources
for them to access as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think, you know, the Hispanic population, you know, most of them don't even think of Alzheimer's. That, you know, like I said, they chuck it up to old age. They're like, oh, you're just you know, mom's just getting old. That's normal. It's a normal part. So a lot of them don't, like I said, they skip through the first stage, and, you know, their diagnosis is already, they're already advanced stage Alzheimer's.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's just also education, just having the education out there and the resources that they can access, and just bringing awareness to this population and help increase the awareness might help and get them more information that they need.
One other thing I wanted to mention as far as the types of dementia, there's over 100 types of dementia, just like different types of cancer. But Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. 80% of people who have dementia, it's of the Alzheimer's type. And people can also have multiple types of dementia at one time. So somebody could have Alzheimer's, they could have vascular dementia, they could have, you know, a different type of dementia, frontotemporal. So the multiple variations of dementia is kind of common too. And then as far as, I'm glad you touched on treatment, because Alzheimer's, out of the top 10 chronic diseases that people end up dying from, Alzheimer's is the only one out of any of those that doesn't have any treatment for it. All they do is have treatment for the symptoms. And then as far as diagnosis, even though there's no specific way to diagnose, there are biomarkers for Alzheimer's. So the biomarkers are the amyloid plaques that build up in the brain and the tau tangles that they're finding in the brain. So they can actually do PET scans on people's brains 20 years before symptoms start, and they can see that there's a buildup of plaque already, the amyloid plaques. So, and that's 20 years before they might be even experiencing symptoms. And the more healthy people are, the less symptoms they might experience as they get older. So even that person with plaque buildup 20 years earlier, if they've been healthy most of their lives, maybe they won't have symptoms till they're, you know, late 80s or something. So there is a benefit to being healthy, eating nutritiously, not smoking, limited intake on alcohol, exercise, good sleep. They've actually found with sleeping throughout the night, getting an average of 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, that actually can help flush the buildup of amyloid plaque in the brain. So if we had a perfect treatment, it would be to be able to flush the brain of those amyloid plaques. But the most natural treatment right now is to get a good night's sleep.
Which most people are not.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
There's
thing.
a lot of people that are sleep deprived. So.
Yeah, and that's the other reason I'm wondering why Alzheimer's has become so common. Because people really, especially as they get older, more busy.
That's interesting.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining. If you have no more questions, go ahead and end the presentation. This presentation will also be posted to our website. If you guys email to you guys, we can also do that as well. But thank you everyone for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Olga.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.